Hopefully we get to go live and we can stay hooked up to the internet. But this is our Wednesday night, and boy, what a change in temperature. 105-degree weather forever, and then all of a sudden, a chill factor down at about 35 degrees, and what a transformation. And so we get today and tomorrow, I think with some cooler weather, and then I think on Friday and Saturday we're back up in the 90s. So welcome to Lubbock, right? So we are glad to have you here on this Facebook Live, and we're going to be talking about, there are 4 steps to deal with disappointment. We're going to be using 2 sets of scripture. The first one is 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 8 through 9. And I read out the King James, and here's what it says. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. Always bearing about in the body of the dying of our Lord Jesus, that the life also of Jesus might be made what? Manifest or visible in our body. And so there's another way to word this, is we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. And we always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, all right, so that the life of Jesus may be revealed in our body. You know, a lot of times when I look for illustrations, and Tigger, I like to talk about grapes. And a lot of people, they like wine and everything else. But the grapes that are just ready to burst open, they have to be crushed. And when they do, then and only then can you get the value of the fruit out of it, that we could use that in different ways, right? In Jesus' day, he turned the water into wine. All right, but that would be considered a natural way for God. But I promise you, if there was a way to turn water into wine, probably 90% of everyone out there would say, well, listen, if I could learn that miracle, I would do that miracle, right? But the proper way would be to let it go through a crushing and then a fermentation. So there's a process to go through. And so I want to talk to you about 4 steps to deal with disappointment. And we're going to move to our next set of scriptures in the book of St. John, chapter 11. And while you're turning to St. John, chapter 11, there was a quote by an unknown. And here's what they said. Don't let today's disappointments cast a shadow on your tomorrow's dreams. Let me say it again. Don't let today's disappointments cast a shadow on tomorrow's dreams. Now, what it was, this is what I teach. What it was is what it was, and you've got to become okay with that. The past is the past. What it was is what it was, and that's okay. What it is what it is. We were having a conversation earlier about the things when you go into a restaurant today, or you try to go shopping, and the requirements that you could meet. In fact, we tried to go to a small store. My wife and I finally got a day off to have a date. And we tried to go into a store, and it only had a handful of people, but they ran up and said, you can't come in. Only one of you can come in until the other people leave. And we just decided, well, we just leave and come back some other time. But how many ever get frustrated and you get disappointed? I know the other day we were craving. We love Chinese food. And we went to every place we could go to, and we couldn't get in. It was all delivery service, but we were wanting to take and have a little bit of Chinese food. So what'd you do? Hey, we were disappointed? Yes. Oh, I don't need that. Were we disappointed and everything? Thank you. Yeah, but what'd you do? Well, we made the best out of it. We went to the supermarket and bought some Chinese food, right? So we made the best. But don't let your today's disappointments, listen, cast a shadow on tomorrow's dreams, or you could say even on your today. So what do? You make the best out of it. What it was is what it was. What it is what it is. And what it's going to be, it's what it's going to be. And that's okay. And here's the point. And all that matters is my attitude and my actions. And those are up to me. You see, if I'll correct my attitude, then I'll come out with the right actions. And then my day is today. I mean, for me, disappointment is one of life's most uncomfortable feelings. Now, we're going to move to St. John chapter 11. We just talked about 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 8 through 9 and everything. Paul says, I got to get control of this. And even though I'm troubled, a lot of us are troubled. He said, on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. And he goes back and talks about verse 10, that the way we get through these disappointments is to, once again, to bear the likeness of Christ in these situations. That's why he said in verse 10, always bearing about the body the dying of the Lord Jesus, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest or visible in our body or in our life. All right, so we're going to move over to John chapter 11. And in John chapter 11, there's going to be some people that are actually disappointed with Jesus. And a lot of people today get disappointed with God. And how did they react? How did Jesus react to their disappointment? Well, let's read about this. In St. John chapter chapter 11, verse 1, let's read this. St. John chapter 11, he says, now a certain man was sick named Lazarus of Bethany of the town of, now a certain man was sick named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. So those are two of the characters here. And it was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. So she had this really emotional time, this spiritual time at the feet of Jesus Christ a little bit earlier. But look in verse 3. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. And when Jesus heard that, he said, the sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified thereby. And in the Greek, that means appeased, or in other words, he's just in a deep, abiding sleep, right? But it was to appease God so he could use it as an illustration. We've been talking the last couple of sermons how that God used people. They had to go through the situation in order to preach the message. For example, Jeremiah's girdle. They had to wear the girdle in order to preach the message. Well, here, they're going to have to go through this experience in order for the message to be understood. Same thing. So verse 4, when Jesus heard that, he said, the sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Now Jesus loved. Now that's an agape love. He loved. That's a deep, abiding love. So now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. You know what he's saying, Lady Karen? He loved the whole family. All right? But when he heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. He did not react in the time span that the family would have been pleased with. How many have ever done that? You've prayed to God, you've prayed to God, you've prayed to God, and it seemed like God didn't answer your prayers. It's because we don't see it from God's perspective. And so we get disappointed with God. Verse 7, then after that said he to his disciples, let us go into Judea again. So in other words, he's on his timetable, not our timetable. And you and I have a tendency as human beings to get disappointed when things don't go our way in the amount of time that we want it to go. We want it now, right? But God said, no, this is for the glory of God. So verse 8, his disciples said to him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? Where's he going? He's going back to Judea, right? So Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in a day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he sees the light of the world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. All right. So these things said he, after that he has said unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may what? Awake him out of what? Sleep. All right. And then they said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. But look at this. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking a rest and had just pretty much fallen asleep, right? Of rest and sleep. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Sometimes we need to get clarity from God. He said, no, you don't understand. Lazarus is dead. All right? So he dealt with them on their understanding, their level of perspective. And he says in verse 15, I am glad for your sakes that I was not there. You know what they're hearing? Jesus is saying, I'm glad he's dead. I'm glad he died. Now, how many know that's going to rub some people the wrong way? And he said, but I am glad for what? For your sakes that I was not there. To the intent that you might what? Believe. So a lot of times, Lady Karen, God allows us to go through some things, and it's for our sakes. It's so our faith can increase. And sometimes he says, nevertheless, let us go unto him. So in other words, he's going to take action. And a lot of times until you take the action in your life of trusting in Jesus, seeing him as God, a lot of times you can't see from God's perspective, God's views on what's happening in your life. All right? We know that everything that happens, it's for God's purpose. But it's how we deal with it, how we get through it that's going to make a difference. We're either going to get weaker or we're going to get stronger. We're either going to get better or we're going to get bitter. And either way, God wants us to grow. So look in verse 16. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. Isn't that amazing? He said, listen, if you're going to do a miracle with him and raise him back up, hey, let us die. You know what he said? He said, if you can raise him, you can raise us. See, already his death has inspired others to believe in the miracles of God. And maybe today, going through someone's death will get somebody to think about God and the miracles of God, the miracle of life. Verse 17, then when Jesus came in, he found that he had lain in the grave for 4 days already. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, which is, not that far away, about 2 miles away, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Jews came to Martha and to Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Now, very emotional time, isn't it? Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, look at this, she's upset. And then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Jesus, if thou hast been here, he says, my brother had not died. It's your fault that he's dead. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou ask of God, God will give it to thee. You see, verse 23, Jesus said to her, thy brother shall rise again. And Martha said to him, I know that he shall rise again on the resurrection of the last day. Now, we talked a lot about that in the book of Revelation, didn't we? But Jesus said to her, I am, circle that, I am the resurrection and the life, and he that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? Because see, once you're saved forever. You don't ever die. That's why we don't experience the second death, right? So verse 27, she said unto him, yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary her sister secretly, saying, the Master is come and calleth for thee. And as soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. We should always respond to God's call and do it quickly. Verse 30. Now Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in the place where Martha met him. So the Jews then, which were with her in the house and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she arose up hastily and went out, followed her, saying, she goeth unto the grave to weep there. Then when Mary was come where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, watch this, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. Now you can refer back to verse 21 if you remember. Verse 33, when Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in his spirit and was troubled, and said, where have you laid him? Said he unto them, and they said unto him, Lord, come and see. The shortest verse in the New Testament, verse 35. And what power? Jesus wept. He didn't weep because Lazarus was dead. He was going to raise him up. But he wept because of the hearts of the people that their faith had been shattered. Their hopes and dreams were gone, and they were broken. And he has such a connection with you and I that when you're going through this time, maybe you've lost a loved one recently, and you're going, just remember that there's a reason why the preacher gets and tries to preach a sermon to help people to think about the life after death. There's a reason why there's hope to be met. But at the same time, most of the time when I preach a funeral, I'll be honest with you, I cry. I know the scriptures, but man, I can feel so much the hearts of the people. I can see the tears flowing, and sometimes just seeing what they're going through is overwhelming to me. And a lot of times I choke up and I try to get control, but as a human, I understand Jesus wept. And I've never apologized for my tears. They're tears of compassion, tears of love. And that's what Jesus did. He had compassion. And he said to the Jews, behold how he loved him. He said, I too loved him. And that's what a lot of times we do during the service. We tell them what we know about that person and try to encourage each other and let people know that their life counted for something. And Jesus said, behold how he loved him. But look at verse 37. And some of them said, could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused even this man should not have died? Notice the blame. The first thing we want to do when things don't go our way, we want to blame somebody. Sometimes we blame ourselves. Sometimes we blame a mate. Sometimes we blame a family member or a friend, or we blame the preacher. We blame the church. We blame the government. That's the sinful response of human nature. They wanted somebody to blame. But look at verse 38 of John chapter 11. I hope this message tonight helps some people. He says, Jesus therefore again groaning. Look at that. He's groaning in himself. He cometh to the grave. He's doing remember, he's God in human form. And I can understand what it's like to have to preach a message at a funeral. I understand what it's like to deal with the people that are crying and the moaning and the groaning and the broken hearts, and even sometimes the anger that people experience during that time. But he himself was groaning in himself. And he comes to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. And Jesus said, look at what he says, take ye away the stone. Now Jesus could have waved his hand, but he's dealing with this from a human perspective. He was God. He could have had angels come down and move that stone. That they're going to do it on after he's died and resurrected. They're going to move that stone out of the way. But you know what he did? He wanted people to take an action to do what they could do. He said, take ye away the stone. Why? Because he wants them to know that he's going to do something they can't. They can move the stone. Jesus can move the stone. What they can't do is raise the dead. And look what he says. Martha, he speaks to her, the sister of him that was dead, said unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he's been dead for 4 days. You know, the flesh is rotting. The internal organs are deteriorating. There's no coming back. From a human standpoint, it's impossible. But with God, all things are possible. So Jesus said to her, said I not unto thee? He reminds her that thou wouldst believe, thou should what? See the glory of God. Isn't that what he said in the beginning to the disciples? Lazarus died, and he held off so that when he does arrive, he can do something that only a God can do. Otherwise, if he got there earlier and he'd only been dead for an hour, they said, oh, he just woke back up. He was in a coma. No, he's dead, right? And he reminds her, he says in verse 40, said I not unto thee that if thou wouldst believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God. Verse 41, then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou hearest me always. Now look at what he says. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe, that they may believe. Did you get that? That they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. I don't know if I done that any justice or not, but I bet when he shouted out, everybody said, wow, he's changed his tone. He came to the grave from a human heart, but now he's going to speak like a God over that grave with command, Lazarus, come forth. You see what he's saying? Jesus is summing up a miracle that only a God can do. And he said, I'm going to do this miracle so they'll know that you have sent me. That I'm not just some prophet. But he's the Son of God, right? Verse 44, and he that was dead came forth, look, bound hand and foot with grave clothes. And remember, they used to wrap him up like a cocoon, right? And his face was bound with a napkin. He couldn't breathe, all right? And Jesus said to them, loose him and let him go. And then it says, then many of the Jews which came to Mary and seen the things which Jesus did, here it is, they believed on him. Underline that. But some of them went their way to the Pharisees and told them what things Jesus had done. And then the next few verses, there's going to be a plot to do away with Jesus. So now that we know the story, talk about disappointments, I believe there are 4 things that, Lady Karen, we can do, 4 steps that I have recently even re-identified with myself, my own process for genuinely getting past my discouragements and my disappointments. Are you ready? Number 1, you got to let it out. Write that down. One of the hardest things to do in a world where everything is immediate and instant, we are all under external pressures and a time that we should be pulling from a sacred resource, and yet it is to just let yourself experience a human feeling. Even Jesus cried. He wept. So what do? He let it out. And I'm going to encourage some of you right now, one of the best, if you have to get out in your backyard and you just got to go sit in a chair or get on your knees or stand with your hands before God, just alone, let it out. Tears is God's way of beginning to deal with a broken heart. There's no shame in crying. Those are human emotions, and human beings are not particularly good at allowing the experience of emotions in full without trying to speed up the process. It's amazing when somebody, their mate dies. People expect them to get over it in a couple of days. Not going to happen. You see, there's emotions involved. There are human emotions involved. And the only time we have this ability in its purest sense is when we are young children. And we have to be told or taught what is socially acceptable. Because children will throw a temper tantrum. Lady Karen, have you ever noticed that? Children, you've had children. And I know you've had children, and you are a child, right? No, you're fits me a grown man, right? But here's the fact, is that children will throw a temper tantrum, and they will cry, and they will scream until it all gets out of their system. And a lot of times they'll turn that into laughter, or they'll genuinely be ready just to move on. You know, I've always said that kids a lot of times are like a rubber band. They just bounce right back. You know, you can go to a funeral and their hearts are broken and they're crying, but a lot of times children will see it, hear it, deal with it, and just move on because they have not been told what would be socially acceptable. They're just moving on as a human being. I'm not suggesting that we lock ourselves away for weeks at a time when we get disappointed or when we go through heartache. But what I am saying is to beware of any sense of obligation to just get over it. Listen, you have to go through a process of dealing with disappointment. For some, they might get through it a little faster than you. It may take you years to get past it. Why, you might have a loved one that dies and yet it's been, 20, 30, 40 years and you're still grieving for that person. Others may be throwing a party the next day because you're gone. That's a joke. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's what's going to happen with me. I don't know. But allow yourself to be human. Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling without any agenda or even speeding up the process. What it was is what it was, and that's okay. What it is what it is, and that's okay. And what it's going to be is what's going to be, and that's okay. All that matters is my attitude and my actions. And ladies and gentlemen, I get to choose my attitude. If I get the right attitude, I get to take and select the right actions in the process of my time. So my time of dealing with hurt or being scared or disappointment, I have to deal with it as a human being. So whatever you're feeling, write this down. This is important. Whatever you're feeling right now, it's okay. It is okay to be human. You don't have to be this superhero. You don't have to be this Christian that just walks on water. Hey, listen, I know of a man in the Bible, he was walking on water with Jesus. He got scared and he sank. And God had to reach down and pull him out, and God said, oh, ye of little faith. Somebody said, well, how do you identify yourself? I identify myself like the thief on the cross. I also identify myself like Peter, that sometimes I just sink. And sometimes God's got to reach down and pull me out and try to talk to me about my faith, right? So take some time to just sit with your emotions. Take some time to go over your experience and experience it without moving to fix it or change it. I always tell people this right here. Never make a life-changing decision when your decision maker is broken. And when you're disappointed, when you're hurt, when you're scared, you're going to make decisions that's probably going to dramatically affect your life in the wrong way. Slow down. Give yourself some time. It's okay to be human. Genuinely experiencing emotions, no matter how painful it is one of the beauties of life. Do not shy away from the emotion. What do? You be present in them. Jesus was present. That's why he got emotional. That's why he wept. So the wonderful thing about letting it out is that you have given yourself the time to get it out. You have said to yourself, I care about me. I care about you. And I want to allow you and me to feel what you and me need to feel. And I do not wish to rush you or rush me or add any more pressure on you or add any more pressure on me. We're under enough pressure without making it worse for each other. You have to treat yourself like a friend. I'll say it again. What would you have done for a friend? You'd have comforted them. You'd remind them it's going to be okay. The other day I went through a situation and my wife says, it's going to be all right. But in my mind, I'm running the scenario through my mind over and over and over. And it took me a couple of days to deal with it. And she was gracious and kind and understanding. And yet she treated me like a friend. And I likewise want to do the same for others, right? And once you've done that, when you treat yourself like you are your own best friend, or you treat yourself or someone else as being their best friend, it becomes much easier to get some perspective. After you give yourself some space to feel, You can give the situation or the individuals involved. It gives everybody, write this down, a chance to breathe. You've got to give people, because when you get the breath knocked out of you, you're not going to do good until you get the breathing again. When I was growing up, I got into my first fight. Healy, I got into a fight. I mean, I was a tough guy. But when I got hit in the belly, it knocked the breath out of me. I fell to the ground. I wasn't as macho at that point that I thought I was. I was not as powerful because I thought I could dominate the world. But when you get your breath knocked out, you got to catch your breath in order to breathe. Until you breathe, you're not going to get up again. Now, what did I learn from that? After you give yourself space to feel, you must give yourself space to catch your breath again. Perhaps the person who you feel disappointed in or by does not even realize that what they've done or how they've upsetted you. Maybe they didn't respond into the situation the same way you did. Maybe they are stressed out and they don't have the emotional bandwidth in order to think about it, because they aren't allowing themselves to experience their emotions. They're trying to deal with your emotions. There has to come a time when sometimes one person might need to walk out in the backyard while one walks out in the front. And when you start breathing again, then come back in so you can have the compassion that's going to be needed to start the process of repair. So having a broader perspective than your own view on a situation is always helpful. Being able to maybe realize that somebody else may have a different perspective. Not everybody's going to like chocolate cake. My wife just fainted. Not everybody else is going to take and like Coca-Cola. Keely just fainted. All right? I personally don't eat chocolate cake, and I don't eat or drink Coca-Cola. I just lost two people as my best friends. But the fact is, I don't have to like cake, and I don't have to drink Coca-Cola, because my friendship is not based on what you like and what I like. It's based on you being you and me being me, and we're accepting each other for who we are. Okay? A broader perspective. So the critical point here is that you have to really, from your perspective, mean it. Everybody says, well, I love you. Yeah, well, you don't mean it. Well, listen, I need to mean it from my perspective. And they have to accept it from theirs, that I mean it from my perspective. Sometimes you just got to take people at their word. Well, what if they don't mean it? Well, don't take that course. Your responsibility is for you to mean what you do. Let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, and let my yea be yea and my nay be nay. And let us come to a place and come together, the Bible says, let the two come together and reason together. So rushing into gaining a perspective before you've allowed yourself to be with how you're feeling will be artificial. Write the word artificial. And it will not be genuine. In other words, it will not last. All right? So what do? Number one, let it out. Number two, get some perspective. We talked about that just now. Number three, I said there's four. Know your own heart. Know your own heart. If I tell somebody, listen, I really didn't mean to do anything to hurt you or discourage you. I'm serious. I use the word serious. I mean I'm serious. And if I use the words Christian honor, I'm being as honest as a human being as I can be. I'm serious. Christian honor, I really was not my intent to disappoint you or to hurt you, and I'm sorry. And somebody says, well, how do I know you're sorry? Because I said I'm sorry. But you see, because I mean it. I'm not just saying I'm sorry to get out of it, of the situation. I shouldn't say it unless I mean it, right? But disappointment can ripple through to the core of who you are. And if you do not know what your core values are, you may not have a framework in order to support you when you experience negative emotions. You've got to have a framework. To the Christian, it's biblical principles is the framework. For example, one of my core values is open-heartedness. I wish to keep an open heart and to be ready to share love and kindness and forgiveness. And whenever you think about that, I want to make sure that my behavior If it wasn't right then, is that I want to make it right now. I always tell people this when you're arguing with people, or maybe you got a different perspective. Instead of saying, you need to fix this, you need to change it, here's how I have learned to deal with it. So if I came to you and I said, Tigger, listen, I know that we don't see eye to eye. And I have apparently disappointed you and things didn't turn out the way you and I thought they would, but I value you in my life. So what can I do that's fair to you, fair to me, that I can do, now listen, to start the process of making this better for us? And I go quiet. I do the same thing with my wife. Now, there's times that we don't have the same perspective of certain things, and we have to step back and say, what's my core value? What's it based on? It would say, I value her. I want her to be happy. I want her to not have to go through the stress. And so, and if I've caused stress or disappointment, I'm going, okay, listen, I value you. I want you in my life. So listen, I know we don't see eye to eye. We have a problem here. So I would say, Lady Karen, what can I do? Now I always tell her, listen, you need to get right with God. You need to go, no, that's not going to work. Well, you need to fix it. That's not going to work. Because now they're already mad, right? But I would go to her with an open heart because I love her and care about her. I say, Lady Karen, listen, I made a mistake or I'm disappointed you in some way and I'm sorry things turned out like they would. Listen, I'm really sorry. Here's the deal. What can I do that would be fair to you, fair to me, that I can start the process of making this better for us? But then I've got to listen with both ears, not just one so my mouth can work. I got to listen with both ears. And sometimes I may have to let it out. I may have to go quiet for a moment. But this is a framework. This is what I do. This is what works for me. It may not work for you. I hope it does, because it's really turned out good for me in the long run if I practice this framework. I choose to be in line with the values over some of the automatic responses to the situation. What does that mean? It doesn't happen every single time, but most of the time, that little phrase works. What would be fair to you, fair to me, that I can start the process to making it better for both of us? The other person may not be at that state of mind. They may still be angry and upset, and all they want to do is fight. And they got fire in their eyes and fire in their mouth, and they got fire in their fist. But you know, Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. So I think the sooner we find peace and realize that somebody's trying to fix it, it starts the process of making things better. Knowing your own heart, knowing your own values gives you the freedom of choice. You can choose to be driven by what happens to you, or you can choose to live in line with your principles in spite of what happens to you. Somebody said you can be the thermostat, but the thermostat, you say, well, what does that mean? Well, it can measure the temperature of the room, or it can change the temperature of the room. Does that make sense? You can be a victim or you can be a victor. The latter has always helped me to overcome my disappointments and my negative situations in a more healthier way. I want to be a victor. I don't want to be a victim the rest of my life. Well, so-and-so did this to me. All right. Magic word. Wah. All right. You say, what does that mean? Hey, what it was is what it was. And you should never, ever, 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 ever go back and let what has happened yesterday to take away what you can have today. The challenge of disappointments allows me to practice living closer to my values and stops me from being swallowed up by those disappointments. And then number 4, practice acceptance. As human beings, even though we know that some things are bound to happen, we are not always willing to accept them. And every time I get disappointed, every time I get hurt, I feel I have made a big mistake. I feel overwhelmed by my own emotions. I'm inclined to withdraw. And like here in chapter 11, to maybe begin to want to blame somebody else. And each time I must accept that I will feel these feelings again. I'm just human, but I can learn from each experience and become stronger with each and every one. I must accept that I will continue to be disappointed, that it is a part of my life being a human being. But I must also accept that I will probably continue to struggle or to accept the fact at various points throughout the rest of my life. Listen, I have found myself beating myself up over and over and over for decisions and things and situations I've been involved in. Might have been days, might have been weeks, might have been months, and I have a tendency to rehearse them over and over and over. And the step in, I found beating myself up over and over and over time as it goes by. The step is a lifelong challenge if you're not careful, and it's fundamentally to dealing with disappointment. How do I deal with disappointment? Like Jesus, I face it and acknowledge it. I let it out. I will be disappointed and I will disappoint. You will be disappointed and you will disappoint. So life will be disappointing, but you know what? But it will pass. There is life at the end. Practice acceptance, and when I believe that we may suffer less and less of what is happening, and notice that the good things that there are in life. Disappointment is a part of life. How you deal with it is whether you live life or not. But all parts of life can help us to grow. And Jesus said, this is for your benefit. You're going to grow from this. We can be present and aware even during negative emotions, and therefore life can be enjoyed more fully. We go back to our original text and we close. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 8 and 9. We are troubled, let's face it, on every side. But look at his response. But we're not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but because of that fundamental faith, we are not forsaken. We're cast down, but we're not destroyed. Always bearing about the body of the dying of the Lord Jesus, that the life also of Jesus might be made visible or manifest in our body. I want to reflect Jesus and how Jesus would respond, even though I'm a human. I'm going to trust God for divine help with my disappointments. I'm going to trust God to get me through it. And Jesus said, Martha, Mary, listen, you're going to get through this. And later on, you find them having dinner at the table with Lazarus, who's alive. They knew from that moment on, this is God, not just a prophet. This is Jesus, the Son of God. And he did something that no man could do. He brought life back from a man that's been dead for 4 days. And they fellowshiped. And can you imagine Lazarus at the dinner table? Well, I never thought I'd see y'all again. Can you imagine the conversations they had? You know what Jesus is saying? There's going to come a day that we're going to see in Christ. If you're saved, you're going to see each other again. And we're going to dine together again at the marriage supper of the Lamb. We just preached about that in the book of Revelation. We've got to close out. But I'm like the thief on the cross. I'm guilty. I've messed up. And my only hope was for Jesus. He looked at Jesus and said, I know you're the Son of God. I know that you have a kingdom. Would you remember me? And all he did was ask. But he also believed that Jesus could remember him. And Jesus went at the extra step and said, well, today you're going to die. But when you do, you're going to be with me. That's what he was saying. He said, today thou wilt be with me in paradise. And that man watched Jesus die. He watched the Son of God die right in front of his eyes. He was there when they came, that thief, when they broke his legs and he cracked on the cross. He began to struggle with his breath. And when he took his last breath and died, immediately he was already where Jesus was going to be. Isn't that amazing? See, God knows it's going to work out for good. Will you trust him? Dear Lord Jesus, I want to be saved, so here it is. Dear Lord Jesus, I know I too am a sinner. I know you're a Savior that died for my sins. On the third day, you arose and you're alive forevermore. So I come to you as a sinner, asking you as my Savior to save me. Give me a home with you when I die. And until I die, please let your Holy Spirit come into me. Change the way I think. Change the way I love in my heart. Help me to live and transform my physical life into a vessel of honor, that I might be used by the Holy Spirit to show people what a powerful God you are and point them to you. And may people get saved in Jesus' name. And all of God's people said, Amen. See you Sunday.